It is difficult to define asthma, but at this moment in time, it's accepted that asthma is a disease in which the air pipes in the lung are inflamed. Maybe I need to explain what inflammation is. When the body is injured by something, there is a reaction, and that reaction is called inflammation. The easiest way of thinking and understanding inflammation is to imagine a burn. So if some part of the skin is burnt by anything, it becomes red, swollen, we'll have small wounds or big wounds, and it'll be oozing fluid. That's inflammation. So in the air pipes of people with asthma, there is inflammation. The air pipe is raw. Consequently to that inflammation, people then experience symptoms of cough, shortness of breath, wheezing, and feeling tight in the chest. These symptoms may be there all the time, that is called persistent asthma, or may come and go. And usually for most people, those symptoms tend to be triggered by specific factors. When we then check how the lungs of these individuals are performing, we notice that there is variation in the way the lung is functioning. So that's how asthma is defined. At this moment, it is estimated that world over, there are slightly less than 300 million people, or just about 300 million people who suffer this disease, asthma. The disease is much more commoner collectively in low and middle income countries like Kenya. In our own country, Kenya here, we don't have very robust data on how much asthma we have. But based on studies that were done in this country many years ago, and looking at the population structure and distribution between cities and rural areas, we estimate that up to 4 to 5 million Kenyans in this country may have asthma. Typically, people with asthma will present with 4 key symptoms. They tend to cough, they have shortness of breath, they have a feeling of tightness in the chest, and they wheeze. These symptoms tend to be worse in the morning and tend to be worse at night. And these symptoms also tend to be associated with specific trigger factors. In our setting, those trigger factors include environmental factors, like for example, when it's cold or dusty, includes exposures to pollens and grasses, pollens from trees and grasses, and also sometimes exposure to animals, including large animals and small animals. And these symptoms then should lead a doctor. If one consults a doctor with these symptoms, the doctor should be thinking about asthma. And if the doctor has all the tools that are required for diagnosing asthma, and especially a tool that is called a spirometer. A spirometer measures the volumes of air that come out of one's lung when they forcibly remove that air. And if you have a spirometer is used to confirm the diagnosis of asthma. In the absence of a spirometer, there's a much more simpler tool that is called a peak expiratory flow meter. And a peak expiratory flow meter will measure the flow, or in simple terms, the speed with which you can bring air out of the lungs when you blow that air out of your lung. And certain changes in the volumes of air that come out, or the speed with which you can bring air out of the lungs, will tell the doctor or the clinician that this individual has asthma. In the absence of tools, clinicians should still be able to make a diagnosis of asthma. In the person who presents with typical symptoms, in the absence of spirometry or peak expiratory flow, you make a clinical diagnosis. We call it a syndromic approach to the diagnosis of asthma. So in that individual with typical symptoms, The absence of a spirometer or a peak expiratory flow meter should not be a complete barrier to the diagnosis of asthma. However, the presence of these tools increases the precision with which the diagnosis of asthma is made.